Hi everybody, it's Toad Pilot here. I'm going to talk about adjusting the pressure for the landing gear system for the ANG Patriot. I've looked out there on videos and I haven't seen much available, but the hydraulic pump for the ANG Patriot is basically a marine trim motor. It's a Mercruiser trim motor. Good thing is it makes it readily available here in the United States if you ever need to replace it or get parts or service for it. Just going over the trim motor, a little bit of basics with it. You got 3 lines going into it. ANG, most trim motors only have 2 lines going into it. ANG said that middle line, they actually tap and add that 3rd line, mainly as a dump line for if you have to emergency blow down the gear that allows hydraulic fluid to come back into the tank. But basically from left to right on your pressures, which they are marked, you got an up line, which is usually the higher pressure side. You got the return line, like I said, after the emergency blowdown. And then you have a low pressure side, which is the downside for lowering the gear, which if you think about it, the gears, can lower by gravity, so it doesn't need as much pressure. That said, for this pressure test, we're going to set both of them to 55 to 60 atmospheres. I don't remember the pressure off the top of my head, but I think it's like 60 is close to 825 psi or something like that. And I think it's about 781, 782 for the 55, but don't quote me on that. Just talking through the pump here again, your wires are relatively simple, luckily, that your green wire goes to your down side, which correlates to that side of the wire. Your black wire is your typical negative or ground, and then the blue wire is the high pressure side. So I labeled them, but luckily just by placement it coincides with the pump side itself. Before I get into doing the process here, there's a few things you're going to need. One, you're going to need jack stands for the aircraft because the aircraft, you're taking away the loop of the hydraulic system. There are no down locks on this landing gear system. It's a simple system. So pretty much your pressure is holding the aircraft gear down or up, either case. So because you're opening up that loop of that hydraulic system, you want to make sure that the aircraft is supported and raised. Second, you're going to need some kind of power source. These pumps are 15 amp as advertised, so you need something with at least 15 amps to power the pump. I found on Amazon a DC power source that puts out 30 amps, basically 120 to 30, so it can plug right into the wall. Not going to worry about draining the battery on it. Next thing you're going to need is you're going to need some kind of way to measure the pressure. So found on Amazon a hydraulic pressure test. Basically it comes with a gauge and a line, so it's that simple. What makes it a little more complicated is that these fittings here are G18 fittings or British standard pipe thread fittings, or I think specifically they're BSPP, so pipe parallel for these. And then there is a PT thread, which is pipe tapered, which is more like MPT here in the United States. But most pressure systems use the parallel threads. That said, it's a G18, so you basically need a hydraulic measuring system or hydraulic pressure testing system that has that adapter or something like it. Said, here's the one I bought from off Amazon. It was $100 and some bucks, but it had everything, and this is when I was still trying to discover even what thread this system was. So it had everything, it had what I needed. You're going to need a couple more things. I got a male to male G18 and I got a female to female G18 adapter. You're probably going to need that just to set up connections for the pump itself. One other thing I almost failed to mention that you'll definitely need paper towels. If you haven't worked with hydraulics before, no matter what, it's a messy situation, so you're going to need lots and lots of paper towels just to clean up hydraulic fluid around. If you've got something else, such as a catch basin, something like that, that'll work too. You're also going to need number 2 Phillips head or so, because we've got to take off this reservoir here. So that's, there's 4 of them on that to take that off. But other than that, that's pretty much the majority of the tools you should need for this job. All right, now we're going to get into how to adjust the pump. All right, another tool I forgot to mention is that you will need either a couple crescent wrenches or an 11 millimeter and 17 millimeter wrench to make the adjustment on the pump pressure itself. Okay, for adjusting the pressure on the pump, here's what it looks like with the reservoir down. You basically got pickups in the back here. Here's your high pressure adjustment. Here's your low pressure side adjustment. And then I believe these are like thermal expansion valves for overpressurization. So basically these adjust to maintain the pressure on the system, and these are relief valves in case, and there's one on the other side too, in case the system's overpressurized. That said, the system really doesn't work at a high pressure at around 800 psi. So what we've done here to test the pressure is we just take one side, which we'll test the high side here first. Basically separate or disconnect the line, add the pressure gauge to that line, and then then we go ahead and pressurize it. I'll show you how to adjust it here shortly. So the pressure was too high, which I knew it was going into this. It was actually up to about 80 bar, so we need to get it down to 55 to 60 bar. So in order to do that, I don't know how many times it's going to take to back out, but what we're going to do is loosen the top lock nut there, and then the bottom here, we're going to rotate it. If you rotate it counterclockwise or screw it up into the system, that's going to increase pressure. If you rotate it clockwise, that'll lower this assembly here, and that'll reduce the pressure. Basically inside what you do is you have a spring and a ball. And so all you're doing is as you screw it in more, you're increasing tension on the spring, hence increasing pressure. If you, kind of turn it out, then that's going to reduce tension on the spring and reduce pressure. So that's what we're going to do. Not really the best access here with the lines still connected to be able to do this, but we'll see what we can get here. Okay, so I got the nut loose, which again was 17 millimeter to do that, the jam nut. Now what we're going to do, we're going to back it out. Basically I'm using these flats as a measurement here on the front. So 1, 2. I don't know, we'll see what it does here, but I'm assuming, or I'm gonna just think that each turn is 10 atmospheres. I don't know that for sure, but this is a trial and error thing, so that's what we're gonna do. All right, so once I have that, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to lock down the jam nut up here, if I can get the wrench on it in a good position, which there really isn't much of a good position to be able to do that. Okay, there you go. That should be on there. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll pressure test it again. One thing I don't want to assume is that that in order to pressure test this, all we got to do is we got to make sure that there's hydraulic fluid there. So all I do is just hold this up and then activate it. I'm going to activate it here. Just you won't see the pressure, but you're going to hear the motor come on. Okay, the pressure gauge actually is showing about 68, but it didn't budge. So what that tells me is that the pressure is actually below that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just open up, crack this here, let some of the pressure out. On the system. All right. And then put it back on. All right, remember, I said this is messy. So always have paper towels on standby to help keep things clean. All right, so now we'll try it again. Just take the reservoir, put it back up in so that there's available hydraulic fluid, and we're going to turn on the motor. Okay, now it's just below 50 atmospheres. So we're going to make another adjustment, and then I'll come back. I'm probably going to do about maybe a quarter of a turn in, because it didn't take much for two. Basically from 80, so 2 turns of the flat here, I lost 30 atmosphere. So I basically got to do 10. So I'm going to try to do a third of the turn that I just did. All right, so I'll come back after I do that. Okay, got to adjust it. It took me just 2 more times to fine tune it, but I'll show you the results. Okay, yeah, so the pressure is holding just below 60 atmospheres, so probably about 57, 58. So again, ANG calls 55 to 60, so I'm happy with that. I don't want to put it on the high side, and I want to keep her above the low side, so I'm okay with that. So that exact same process you'll do for to adjust the low pressure side, or any of the sides on that. So I hope this is helpful for anybody that either one is looking to adjust an ANG landing gear pressure system, or just 2. It's a normal Mercruiser trim motor if they're looking to adjust the pressure on that motor system. So again, thanks for watching. This is Toad Pilot. See you later.